we lived in the trees and why it looks melted. So we're going to be discussing the idea of meltology and how that compares to the living in the trees idea. So one of the things, like comparing different substances, like wax, you got all your rivers of wax and all this kind of stuff, like, which, you'd be expecting to see that kind of thing happening with all these melted buildings and stuff. They say that it's quick cooling, so what I mean. That's why they're not going to be completely melted or that kind of idea and stuff like. And one thing about a candle, it's burning from top. What I mean. So you could say that the top part of the building has kind of melted, and then that's what that is and stuff like. So the general melted building thing, it's like the entire candle would melt all at once, and it would have all slumped. What I mean, and stuff like. And maybe even turned to liquid. It depends how hot, and depends on the narrative of what the metallurgists are saying it is really and stuff like. But there'd still be potential for this to happen. And I'm not really seeing that kind of thing. What I mean? Like, like the details of it. It cools, and then another layer goes over it, and then another layer goes over it. What I mean, and stuff like. So to see that in nature, or even this and stuff like that. So that'd be like a cliffside, wouldn't it? Or a flat land, or even a hillside, and then going back into a cliff or a drop. But so like things like that, I don't see rocks like that. I mean, rock's heavy in it, so it's gonna break and stuff like. But so in this example, like buildings melted everywhere. So when you got like mass puddles of wax here, but in this sense of whatever material is for the buildings, which would be rock, and when it's cooled back down, it's back into its rock form or whatever and stuff like. So it'd be something like this, and really, it's like, well, we've not got it. What I mean? It's completely different how we've got it. Like in an earlier video, I showed like the sand timer, egg timer. What I mean? So like you turn it over, and then all the sand drips down, doesn't it? And you creates a hill or a pyramid kind of tower of sand and stuff like. And this is what we get at the side of mountains. What I mean, and stuff like. So you're seeing like the breakdown of the sandstone and all that kind of stuff. Rocks and pebbles and any debris that falls off it and stuff like. Boulders. Into piles like that sand, which isn't melting, that's over time, isn't it? Erosion and all these kind of things. So so it's a different contrast to this. Another example. Yeah, it's like spillover and all that kind of stuff with it. Because we don't see rocks like this, or I've not seen. And the meltologists have got like more, because I've not really heavily invested into it and stuff like. I've these elements of it which I strongly disagree with. But there's a lot of stuff that we talk about which is kind of like, my research goes along with that anyway. So like mountains were buildings. That makes sense because we lived in the trees. The mountains used to be wood and all that kind of thing. So once it petrified, that's the difference. It was carved out beforehand and stuff like. Yeah, we've got, this is, a slurry of it all coming out and then drying. Excuse me. It's the first time I spoke today. So, this is what I would be expecting for all the melted building kind of stuff like. See, it's made columns. It looks like a building now, but we know it's wax. You know what I mean? And stuff like. Another example. The disadvantage with this is it's melting from outside. I don't know whether meltologists would say it all melt all simultaneously, or what their argument is for that and stuff like. But you know, melting from outside, all of it, if it all melted all at once, it'd just make a big pool. You know what I mean? So we'd have a lot of that, and not finding it. So we've got metal from a burnt out car, which is quite fast cooling. It goes quite thin, doesn't it, when it burns and stuff, kind of thing, when it gets hot. So it can spread quite well and stuff like. But you got little bubbles and stuff. But we're not seeing this either. This is the brick. What is it, a fire cellar? I can't remember what it was called. But yeah, so we had fires in here and stuff like that kind of thing, intentionally, for whatever we're doing. And you know, bricks melt and stuff like. So yeah, bricks do melt. I looked that up ages ago. Quite high degrees and stuff kind of thing like. But I'll look that in a second. Yeah, depending on the type of brick. One of them's 1,500 Celsius, and the other type is 2,200 Celsius. And the hottest fires you can get are like up to 5,000 or just under 5,000 Celsius. So you can build a fire hot enough to melt a brick. So in some cases, these, you know, potential of melted buildings and stuff. Oh. Let's see, this is burnt on edges and stuff like that kind of thing. Is that like an example of, if we're talking about the marshmallow bricks, is that what we call them? The one which expand and all that kind of thing. I think it were a different name actually. But I don't know, not really seeing it. I mean, is that like stuff that's broken away rather than it expanding out? Like old bricks, you know. They like wear away quite easy, you know what I mean, and stuff like. It's melted plastic. So you see how it crumples and wrinkles and all that kind of stuff like. You'd expect that from buildings. It's another aspect of it and stuff like. If it dries quick, because like a lot of it, like the layers and stuff like that kind of thing on a hillside or a cliffside, and calling that like all melted buildings all squashed down, or again, it's kind of like, well, couldn't part of that still be, you know, to like slowly become like, you know, these were floors, and then it's tighter here and stuff like that kind of thing. So this side of building clumps, you know what I mean? If we kind of like turned it around and said that, well, you know, use it as like building the face of a building and stuff like, you know, just to serve as an example. But we're not finding this either. And this is another example. What wood looks like when it melts. Melts is the wrong word, you know what I mean? Because it burns, doesn't it? But when you compare it to ice, see, these are like, yeah, sometimes I've like watched a fire and it's like watching ice cubes, you know what I mean? And they're kind of like slowly become smaller, you know? So let's have a look at this. See all the sharp edges on the corners. So when we go into time lapse, similar to like logs on a fire, you know, say if it were a branch that would have broken away, you know what I mean? It's become its separate piece now and stuff like that kind of thing. It's slowly going away, and its corners turned into a round edge. as it slowly melts and stuff kind of thing. You know, boulder or pebble kind of shaped and stuff like. So then, in comparison, we've got a log burning. So in a sense of how this melts, if we look at it in that kind of way of seeing it, so if it gets smaller, the edges kind of, everything reduces. On the outside of things, you've got ash. But then comparing this to Alaka's mountains, which are what was left of, you know, what the giant trees were and stuff. We lived inside areas of it. But it's not much different from ice. You know what I mean? There's a very similar way of it in a way. So it's like it's opposite contrast. It's like you know, heat goes up, the flames go up, and all that kind of stuff. And like the cool of the ice that goes down, doesn't it? So when you're watching the melting takes a upward pattern when things burn. So they're not really melting, but when they're burning. But when looking at that kind of pattern, that's what it's showing you in a way. So looking back at this, like I said, I like ice cubes. You know, like this as well. Like I say, on the outside, you get like it buries itself in ash, doesn't it? You got your what's it called? All ash, and then like your charcoal area and stuff like. And once it buries itself, it becomes it can suffocate itself. So it's like the bigger the fire is, you know, you put more and more stuff on it, they end up burying the bottom of the fire. You know what I mean? So some of it don't all have to burn underneath and stuff like. But see all shapes of them though. And see how it's going to reduce. It just becomes smaller. You know what I mean? Like I say, like an ice cube. As you look at the patterns, the shapes. That it leads into it. So now if it were going to rain, you know, like a heavy rain, which is like filled with ash because the sky's filled with ash, and it's also snowing ash. It's been snowing ash for days, say. You know, as soon as you light a fire, you get like ash snowing down instantly, you know. So like, you know, in this idea, like, you know, the giant trees burning down and stuff like that, and the amount of ash which would have come down, you know what I mean? It's kind of like burying everything as it's going and stuff like. I see, like, I was saying about the ice cubes, if it were a branch, and it'll break up into its own segments, and then just melt, kind of thing. Cube there. It's becoming less and less over time. And then you're left with this on the ground. It's still on fire, but... Oh, these textures. And these textures. So if you look at the side of a cliff, is it like a melted building, or is it evidence of a fire which happened? I see like all the charcoal areas, once it's rained and been buried in ash and all these kind of stuff, like, and years later of all the weathering and erosion, anything soft, brittle, that's going to come off years ago. And all that's left is what's underneath these shapes. So what's underneath there is more of a smooth round shape, because a lot of that is kind of like sharp edges and stuff like, which we still have, but it depends on how brittle it is and stuff like. I don't know, it's a fire, but interesting pattern in a sense. But it might be like a shop bought fire or something like that. Example with logs. And really, like I said, it's going to be the amount of branches and trees and all that kind of stuff, like the depth of a fire, it will have buried itself, which is why I included like the underground fire videos and stuff like, because like it's relevant, so like with this, it's like, imagine another branch going on there and another log going on and another branch and another log and all across and stuff like, and then it, how long would it happen? We can only imagine in that kind of sense, because we need to know, size of trees and all these kind of things. But it's like the amount of areas, the amount of, how disastrous it would have been. You wouldn't have been able to survive. It would have been really difficult. I mean, obviously there were some survivors and stuff like, but the plane's quite a big place. So now you like look at these like cliffs. It's like a little valley between two cliffs kind of thing. And you look at the patterns at rocks. Obviously it's wood and it's charred and all that kind of stuff like. But this is what it looks like, And the ground, back onto the cliffside. Just as an example and stuff. So it's breaking down to pretty much no, Once that becomes nothing, it's becoming less. You can't tell what it is, you know what I mean, as time goes on. You like look at ground and stuff like that kind of thing. It's like the entire realm will have looked like that after all fires, or even jarring, and stuff like that. Like imagine, see that colour, like some parts will look like that and some parts will have already burnt and buried, or probably underground fires and you had all pockets of smoke coming up and stuff like. So we've got burnt out tree stumps as an example of what the mountains are today. So like, for the shape of them. Some of them are flat topped, which, maybe maybe people did actually cut some trees down, and built on, on the stump and stuff like. I don't know, it's just an idea. But a lot of mountains are like this. I mean, you've got like this very jagged and toothy claw kind of shape to it or whatever and stuff. And they'll let you look at the details of it and stuff like that. You see the wood, you see the charcoal and all that kind of stuff. And you can see how the charcoal's like manipulated the wood and how the wood kind of looks and stuff. On some of them. Some of it's easy to tell. So. It's like you got some mountains like that. Like Domet Rock. It's soft and curved. You know what I mean? Which the flames can do that. Domet Rock in Yosemite. And then again, we all debris. So, unburnt bits, you know, remaining blocks of charcoal and stuff like that. It's all scattered. And then you've got all this soft stuff in between. Much like a landscape. So another one is how it's changed how wood looks. So like these bits here and stuff. So it looks melted, it's a bit blurry a bit, so I can't really tell what's going on there. But it is a tree stump though. So another tree stump. Get a lot going off on there. It's like all ash and all that kind of stuff like. Yeah, it can have a melted look to it. Sometimes. Tree burning. I see what it's going to become. So all that's going to be gone. And then you'll just have whatever's remained at stump. If there's any stumps remaining at all. You know, like the giant crater videos and stuff like. Or pictures are showing. You see, like on this, it's all black and shit. Oh, that's that tree. So it's still alive. Can't zoom into it. You got like caves. You got all exterior, which is all like, you know, it just looks different. You know what I mean? I've got some better photos for it as we go along. See, it becomes all blocks and stuff like that. It looks a bit blurry, does that? I don't know. That's a bit better. Where's your mouse? I can't zoom into that one. I see, again, for the melting aspect of it. Gonna melts up. So there's another tree, burnt. Burnt out. So you got all this pattern and stuff like. And see how it looks? It looks like a building, doesn't it? See how bricks? I mean, not bricks. But it's remarkable how it looks like a building. And some of the melted building pictures do look like this, but we've not got rooms, and it doesn't make sense, you know what I mean, on some of them. And it's like, so I think that's where the idea of like the marshmallow swelling brick idea kind of fills it in, kind of thing. But the idea, you know, like, because you take that other look at it, you know what I mean, and it's kind of like, it looks like a proper a proper building. Another tree. It's displaying its shape. Obviously rock's really heavy, you know what I mean? It's not supporting itself like wood does. So as it's petrified and stuff like that kind of thing. It struggles for things to get that, you know, in such position or whatever and stuff like that. But you do have some examples of towering pieces of rock and stuff like that previous picture. See, like here, there's a sheen on it and stuff like that kind of thing. Which probably would be brittle and weather off and stuff like, but that's a bit blurry and all. It looks alright actually, like from here and stuff like that kind of thing, like at that distance, but when I zoom in, it's not very good. Again, you know, if it's your mountain sides and stuff. That's pretty much all burnt out. You've got it's burning down here, so you get in your crater aspect or your access to like tunnels and stuff like that kind of thing. So if the root's burnt out, then you know you've got good access to a tunnel in that kind of way. But all this ash it's going to wash away in it, you know what I mean? So you're not going to have much of that left. This is petrified, so that's like top heavy. You know, eventually it's going to fall, and you know, if not by now, if it were a real mountain and all that kind of thing. But and you got all your debris, which is covering everything. I mean, it looks different in a way. Charred wood. See how bumps it's developed. It's almost like that marshmallowing, but we know that it was smooth. You know what I mean? Even these used to be smooth and stuff like, but it's blurry when you zoom in now. You can see it okay, yeah, little bits of it and stuff like that. It's up there and all that kind of thing. So yeah, I got it smooth, and then it's done all this pattern. Uniform. That tree from the other side. Oh, debris from Devil's Mountain, Devil's Tower. So it's all that mountain due to like all the debris from the branches, leaves, you know, from from its seasonal growth and all that kind of stuff. And then also, if it's felled, then you know all the branches falling down or burnt down and stuff like, and the debris from that's like you know added to it and stuff. But and been flooded as well. So in here, you see how it's smooth? And then up here, it's like it's cracked, it's misshapen, it's not like it is at the bottom. You know, you'd expect it to weather more at the top, really, but that's more like evidence that there was a fire. You know what I mean? That's like the area which is which was scorched and stuff like, so it's affected its shape and structure and stuff. Under here it will be protected. You know what I mean? Maybe the outer layers have fallen off. See it all up there. See it changes. Smooth. And then like that. Pretty. So then, comparing to, you know, those stumps and stuff like that kind of thing, you got mountain ranges like this. They're all stuck up like that, so it's like, you know, it's just what we're left from fire. And like I say about, like, you know, alt rain and the amount of ash that would have been in that rain. Again, and just more like examples of trees, you know, the stumps. What the fire would have done to it. It's like, as I say, it looks like